Speaking about the findings, we know that State of DevOps report has these popular findings, which was used to be called 4 golden metrics or 4 key metrics, but now there are 5 key metrics. Can you probably explain to us what are these 5 key metrics?
Yes, absolutely. So the 5 key metrics, and you're right, they started off as 4 key metrics. Really, at the beginning of the research program, the question was, how do we improve and measure software delivery performance? Frankly, when it comes to the word DevOps, Henry, you have a different definition than I have, than anyone of our listeners has. This is one of the challenges of DevOps. As a community, DevOps has always shunned a common definition. So as a researcher, how do you measure a thing and research a thing that's not well defined? Well, this was one of the problems that the DORA research team set out to solve for. So what they came up with was a very practical and pragmatic way to measure software delivery performance. And that's where we got the 4 keys. So software delivery, how do you measure software delivery? Well, within DORA, what we measure are 2 metrics for stability and 2 metrics for throughput. I'll start with the throughput, the velocity. How fast are you delivering software? For that, we look at deployment frequency. So how frequently are you pushing changes out to your customers or the users of your application? And then importantly, we look at lead time for changes. So as a developer, I'm making a change to the code base. I commit that change to the version control system. You're using a version control system, right, Henry? I hope all of you are. If you're not using a version control system, stop listening to this podcast, go read up on Git or any other version control system, and then come back and listen to the rest of this podcast. Okay, sorry, I had to get on there for a second. So deployment frequency, how frequently are you pushing out changes? Next is lead time for changes. As a developer, I make a change, commit it to the version control system, the timer starts. That timer stops when that change lands in production. And so we want to increase the frequency with which we're pushing out changes and decrease the amount of time it takes for those changes to go from the developer into production. Those are our velocity metrics. And then we have our stability metrics. Moving fast is great, but if you're moving fast and always breaking everything, that's not so good. So stability, we look at 2 things there. The first is your change fail rate. So when you make a push into production, how frequently are you shouting out an expletive? Oh my gosh, this is broken. We have to roll it back immediately. So when you have that, that's a change failure. Someone had to get involved in that deployment process. We want to decrease those as much as possible. Our final stability metric has to do with this idea, this truth, that it doesn't matter what we do to reduce risk. Risk is always present. Failures are inevitable. Something is going to break. So we have to look beyond the tools. We have to look at our team and say, how quickly does it take us, or how quickly can we restore service to our customers when there is something that impacts them? And so this is our time to restore service. So those are our 4 key metrics: deployment frequency, lead time for changes, change failure rate, and your time to restore service. Now, what we found as we looked at those 4 metrics, and what we found consistently throughout the course of the research study, is that they aren't trade-offs. Many organizations think, in order to be safe, I have to be slow. But the data shows us that the best performers are getting both. And in fact, as speed increases, so too does stability. So there's some really interesting findings there. Okay, but you asked about the 5 metrics, and I said there was a 5th one that we've added this year. That 5th one that we've added, we've really refined it this year, I would say. For the past couple of years, since I want to say 2018, although I might have to check my notes on that, 2018, 2019, whatever it takes, we introduced this idea not just of software delivery performance, but software delivery and operations performance. Now, operations performance, because when you've deployed something, that's the beginning of it providing value to you as an organization and to your customers. So we really need to answer this question of what's our operational performance look like? In the past, in previous years, we asked questions about your operational performance in terms of availability. But this year, we've refined our approach and gone deeper with the research to move from availability to reliability. Now, a subtle change in language, but as we know, language is important. But that subtle change is really more to help everyone consider not just is the application available, but availability is really a component of reliability. In both cases, though, what we're really trying to answer, the question we're getting at, can you keep your promises to your customers? Can they rely on the application or the service that your team is building and shipping? So what we found this year as we dug really deep into reliability is that reliability practices push organizational performance. They drive that organizational performance. So as an organization, if you want to get better, investing in reliability can really help.
I really love the way you explain all these key metrics with a little bit of humor here and there as well. So this is my first time hearing such explanation of the golden key metrics. So just to recap, there's the velocity or throughput metrics, which are the deployment frequency and also lead time for changes. There are the stability part, which is the change failure rate and time to restore the service. And the fifth one, which is related to operational side, which is now called reliability aspect. So it used to be availability, but now we changed the term to reliability.